So, welcome everyone to the third anniversary episode of Recordando. This series started in November 2020. Yeehaw, cheers. Sorry, no budget for balloons and more fanfare. But I am celebrating in my own sick way because I'm ill this week over this particular iteration of the tea giving holiday. I hope that sincerely, okay, I'm going to stop with the kind of fake sincere voice that I do when I'm announcing to my real sincere voice, which is I really hope y'all had a nice week away from the rigmarole and the ho hum or the humdrum or the, you know, overwhelming. Even though Gaza didn't stop, Gaza won't stop, don't stop. And so that was always like the record playing in the background for me. So just sending out those thoughts and hopeful wishes. I think there's a protest in my town tomorrow, which is saying a lot because I live in a sleepy North Texas town. So did you get to eat some good food? Did you get to avoid the people that irk you the worst? Or did you get to summon and be with those who love you in the best way possible?
I just avoided everyone for days and I ate leftovers, but not like Thanksgiving leftovers. I ate stuff I cooked earlier in the week. It was my birthday on Wednesday, and I just sort of holed up and didn't talk to many people. It was like a birthday curmudgeon, then a Thanksgiving curmudgeon, and I'm proud of it. There's Lorraine. Hi, Lorraine.
I was mostly alone because I'm ill, and my sweet niece Brianna delivered a home cooked meal, which she deemed as the best Thanksgiving plate she'd ever put together, and I would concur. It was amazing, and I'm profoundly grateful that she thought to make a home delivery to me. So my nephew was off with his paternal grandma, and they went to a Golden Corral, and apparently that was a success for them. So good for
That
them.
would have been fun.
Well, I had my ex-wife and her husband invited me over there for a meal, and they had um, a friend who had been an editor of a series on feminist Old Testament scholarship, um, from who's there from the UK. He's actually a Scot, and so I got to. And one of the things I asked him what he was working on, and he says that his area is on the Old Testament book of Ezekiel, and what he was interested in is um, how through history the people's understanding of what it meant to have a vision, like the visions in Ezekiel, uh, and then tying that in with hallucinogenic visions and stuff like that. So we had a great conversation.
I just went over to my neighbors for a break in my well, it's not really grading, but I teach this course that's called the Pen Project, where we respond to the writing from the prison in New Mexico that's sent to us, and the students respond. They're sort of interns also. And so it's a lot of coordination. And we had the last cycle of that reading had come through just, well, I guess on Tuesday. But anyway, I hadn't gotten it out to the students yet, so I had to do that. And
how many pieces of writing did you look at this year?
Yeah.
How many pieces of writing? You mean with all my
with these prisoner writers?
Well, The
Was there a
cycle
lot? I'm just
usually
curious.
have, yeah, it's a lot. I mean, the cycles usually have about, between a half dozen, I mean, not a half dozen, a dozen and 20 probably. It's not a whole lot, but then it goes out to the students, and then the students respond, and then I send it back to the responses back to the coordinator there at the prison. And then there's some other, like sometimes they send their feedback too, and then there's a open letter at the end. And then the other side of the class is students learning more about the prison industrial complex and writing discussion with each other, because it's all online. So yeah, that one didn't have too much, but in terms of all my classes this fall, because it's way overloaded in the fall, it's, I don't know, thousands. Lots of writing anyway.
Wow, thank you
Hey,
for doing that work. Thank you.
It's a good program. It's real. That's definitely the upside of it. And some of the writing is actually really interesting.
Is it a statewide program, or is it specifically tied to one center, one prison?
The interesting thing is, I teach for ASU, which is Arizona, but this is a New Mexico prison, and it's their highest security prison, I think. So these are folks that are likely not getting out anytime soon anyway. And all men. But then we have like one writer who's more accomplished. I mean, he's got a book of poetry out. He's working on a couple novels, and so that's another thing that the students, some of them do, is read his work. It's both graduate students and undergraduate students, and give feedback and help him out a bit. But with the New Mexico prison, they're transcribing the work. It's all, written out. They don't have access to any computers or anything at any point. So, I mean, we do get the stuff. We used to get it by mail. Now we do get it on PDFs, but none of it's the writers themselves don't have access to any mechanical means, which is really a sort of interesting aspect to it too.
do you ever get, so it's prisoners writing, and there's a program, but you don't do feedback or teach them, or so to speak, or is it students of yours?
It's students of mine. I mean, I'm overseeing the thing. Sometimes I do give a little bit of feedback, especially if there's something where the students aren't responding, or also we discuss some of the work. Sometimes there's something that, for one reason or another, sometimes just because it's illegible, isn't going to work, and what are we going to, so in some of those cases, I will try to give feedback where it doesn't go out to the student or the students. But and it's a pretty rigid thing. I've got a cat out there. I need to go out in a minute. It's a pretty rigid requirements, from the prison authorities, that we have to sort of be careful about.
Yeah.
But it's worked pretty well.
Especially if it's a max prison, I guess. I don't know. I haven't been in one, but I came across an email. Or Lorraine is we're losing Lorraine.
I think
She's
Get
Lorraine's
some sleep,
a little
Lorraine.
bit sleepy.
We love you when you're sleeping.
Dream of us while you're sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
Really sorry, guys.
Oh,
I'm an
that's
hour
okay.
ahead of like the majority of you all. And I've been up since 3 o'clock.
Oh,
So
big day.
I think it's buddy time.
Yeah.
right.
It's good to hear your voice, even if for a minute.
Yeah.
Happy holidays to you all.
See you next month, hopefully.
Yeah, I'll try to not get up so early.
You do you, babe. You do you.
Yeah.
Ciao, chicos.
Ciao.
Mhm. Yay.
I've been following the organization, the Minnesota Prisoner Writing Project, for since the pandemic in 2020. Somehow got on their emailing list, and they had an amazing virtual reading, which lasted about 2 hours, and they had time in between each of the poets' presentations, and they weren't all poets. Most of them were, where we were given the first name only of each of the prisoners and invited to write something in the chat, responding to the work. And coordinators of the program promised that they'd collect all of those comments and give them to the prisoners.
So you could see the prisoners reading, but they couldn't see
There were
you?
recordings because it
Mm.
was a virtual year because of the pandemic.
Mhm.
There were recorded readings. There were some in person, like there were people gathered together in a room, but they were mostly the coordinators and staff of the program, as well as some prison personnel, I'll say. And then former prisoners who are still active with the program as mentors and, accompanying currently incarcerated people in that program. So they showed up and they would also read. So there was like a lot of flavors of work and perspectives in their work. I think I shared with y'all one poem, which if I can find it before we close tonight, maybe I'll dig it out again. It was a response poem to hearing the beautiful, just sublime work of a person who's serving 2 consecutive life sentences. Someone who he himself had seen a lot of carnage in his home country of Cambodia in his early life. So yeah, I really love hearing about programs like that, and
I,
props to you.
I,
Thank you.
I had maybe I shouldn't mention. Well, I'll mention anyway. I had because maybe this is a good group to get. I don't know if I need a response or not, but so I was just traveling for 5 weeks, and I wasn't really keeping up with everything so well, a little bit. But in the middle of that, I got an email from someone I didn't know, uh, uh, a guy who said he had read a piece of mine in a recent anthology and he really liked it and he wanted to know where he could hear more. And it sort of just went. I didn't respond. It went by me, but when I got the email, I was like, "Oh, I don't know this person's name," but I knew a bunch of people in the anthology, so I Googled him, and I guess to my surprise, I don't know, maybe not, but he's a prisoner and somewhere in California. And for some reason, it told me why he was imprisoned also, wherever I found it. And when I Googled his name, which was like 17 counts of child molestation or something like that. And it kind of weirded me out. And then I thought, oh, I'll deal with this later. I didn't respond to him, but I feel like I should. I just came across the email again and I haven't looked up his piece in the, and I'm not sure what to do, um, and I don't think I think I should just respond to him. Uh, it's
Sure.
just, it's a weird thing to have someone to know that someone had done something of that magnitude, before you even really meet them. And I
I
don't,
was accepting collect phone calls from a person who was serving a death. He was on death row in Texas,
uh-huh,
in Huntsville, for killing a cop, and
uh-huh,
he that's what he'd been convicted of. Though he did, I don't remember details of his case, and if I remembered his name, I wouldn't say it anyway right now.
yeah,
But
doesn't matter.
it did seem to me, as I'm thinking back to the mid-90s, that he was claiming innocence, or that he felt he was, kind of set up for that conviction. But yeah, I accepted a few phone calls from him because a mutual poet friend, Heather Burmeister, had
Yeah,
asked me if I wouldn't mind taking calls from him because she was also chatting with him, and she commented to me that he was feeling extra emotionally alone and needed support. And I took that on until I'm like, oh, my brother is in prison, and I think I only have enough bandwidth for one guy to support. And the collect phone calls are it's over the top expensive, and there's price gouging involved, which just drives me
Right.
crazy because it impacts the family members.
Yeah.
So it's like punishing the entire family and the support system for the crime the prisoner's been convicted of.
Yeah.
And not to
I mean,
mention, this is a quick aside, when you go in person to visit someone in a Texas prison, because that's the only experience I've had, sometimes they'll have a pizza vendor, like boxes of Dominoes. And of course, you want to buy some slices or an entire pie because it's one of the few privileges or treats you can offer to your loved one you're sitting across the table from. But the pizzas themselves were like $25 or something. It was like so ludicrous. All the money being made on the backs of the family members just drove me loony.
yeah.
And
I was just having fights with myself over my reaction to like what I found on Google almost accidentally, before even meeting this person. And was I being judgmental? And is that bad? You know what I mean? I don't know.
I would
I
say you were being careful. It's okay to be careful and
Well,
take
I just Googled the
precaution.
person going, I wonder who this is. I figured I'd get
Right.
a poetry page or something like that. And instead I got um,
Water on him. Yeah.
yeah,
That can be sort of shocking.
a
I
little
have
bit.
a friend in one of the it's my shamanic journey group on Zoom. We do shamanic journeys on Zoom, but he's a forensic psychologist who specializes in working with perpetrators of sexual abuse of children.
Hmm.
And he's really opened my eyes to a lot of, um, if you look at reparative justice, you know, people don't ever ask what they want done with this person. It's they go into the legal system, and the legal system makes all these decisions and does all this stuff, but nobody's ever asking the victims, how should we deal with this person? um, and 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 is there anything that the perpetrator could do? And of course, you have to be careful and dealing with victims and perpetrators and those sort of things. But anyways, there's a lot of uh, how do we do a reparative justice?
Yeah.
Because our criminal justice system is ridiculous. Um,
Yeah. There was an instance in Oakland this last year, and I wish I could remember the details better, but like a woman in her little shop, or maybe a bakery, I think that she had started, a woman in her 20s or 30s, and some guy came in and held her up and 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 shot her, and she died. But like a couple days later, and it was and she had said that she had um, been of the um, belief that the justice system was very wrong, and before she died, she didn't want this person prosecuted, and that it caused a big to do within the community and also her family, because she died from it, and she didn't want him prosecuted, but you know um and yet some people did want him prosecuted because he killed their friend. And then some of her friends though were like, no, she said this. So I'm not saying there was an
Wow.
out I don't know the outcome, I can't remember it, but it was kind of fascinating. um I mean, I don't think anything's black and white, and I think we have a shitty justice system as it is, but And in fact, I have a friend who's been serving, I think, 7 years now for, um, who was convicted of sexual harassment, um, and claimed innocence. And I'm pretty sure he was unlikely to do what they said he did. Someone that I know. But
There's a letter or a affidavit or whatever that you can sign that I've done before with a friend in the anti-death penalty movement, where it says if you get killed by the action of someone else that you don't want there. I think it's just that their life won't be taken in, that they won't be. I don't think it goes so far as to say that they wouldn't be prosecuted, but that they would not be
death penalty,
whatever. Yeah. And I think that is, I mean, we had to get a notary public and everything. So I think it, as I understand it, it, stands up in court. Maybe. Who knows anymore?
Who knows? Where do you live, Kamala?
I'm in San Antonio in Texas.
Oh, you are in SA. Okay.
I'm going to run out for just a second because I was hearing a kitty making noise out there. And
yeah, you mentioned that a while back, and we should read some poetry in a minute.
Yeah, I'll be right back. And sure. I want to show you my new book. It's not poetry, but
wow, well,
it's poetry in it. But
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a kind of a good thank you story to tell, but I'll wait. Tammy, I like your hat too. Is it obstructing your hearing?
Sometimes it does, and I find that thankful. I'm glad. When I'm on a bus, like the mega bus, I just bring it on down. It's actually too small for my head, so I can't fasten it below my chin. So I really like the Laplander look myself. So I'm good with it this way.
Yeah.
I do like to visit cultures through my millenary tastes and predilections. It's just fun. I love the color red. I don't have a lot of bright red things. I would definitely not wear the hat that everybody wears that's red, the gimme cap, but this I like, and it's 100% cotton. It's very
it becomes it becomes you.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
it frames my face.
I can't wear red or orange, really. Yeah, you're pulling it off, Jeffrey, though. Yeah. I almost never wear red or solid red or orange. I don't. It makes me agitated.
Oh,
if
I
I'm
see
wearing
that.
it, if I'm wearing it, yeah, it's like this particular hot color is in the corners of my eyes all the time, and it's not that I never do, but I very rarely. If you go and look in my closet, and I do have an open closet policy,
okay. Okay.
You won't see a lot of reds, oranges. I do have one orange plaid I wear sometimes, but mostly because it's really comfortable.
Yeah, I've got one burnt orange. It's not UT, but it's a burnt orange. I've become aware of it because my qigong instructor we were doing I was doing journey meditations to my chakras, and the root chakra is ruby red, and so this is my grounding chakra. Sacral or second chakra that has to do with sex and emotions and all that sort of stuff. That's orange.
Yes, it is.
And that's as far as I've gone so far.
You'll get there.
Yeah, it takes time doing these meditations. There's so much going on internally in all these chakras.
Purple's a good goal.
I just I was just looking at a thing that was talking about the typical addictions of people who need work on each of the chakras. And the the second chakra tends to be alcohol. But then when you get way up to head, you start getting to hallucinogens. The third chakra is amphetamines and cocaine and you get up into the heart chakra. And, well, I won't try to go through all of that, but it's fascinating. Oops.
I thought you were gonna say Oreos and flaming Cheetos, because I think more people are probably addicted to those than any of the aforementioned so-called
Yeah, that's your root. That's your root chakra. Your root chakra is food addictions.
Tammy, do you remember my chakra piece with Peach?
I loved it. I mean, I don't know, I don't remember much of it at all, but every 5 years or 3 years or so, I really have a longing to hear or see you present something like that again.
I have it somewhere on tape, but I don't know how to convert it for the internet. Jeffrey, I actually did it several times. I had a performance piece that was a sort of a satire in some ways of both anarchist groups and chakra work, even though I tended to be involved in both myself, which is maybe why I made a good satire. And it was
Right.
called TCS, and that was eventually revealed to mean toxic chakra syndrome. Mhm.
Yeah, I loved it.
That was very funny.
Oh, you'll have to share it with us sometime.
So I'm gonna read a poem now, and so I was trying to figure out if I had any pieces that addressed this particular holiday that going through in any way. And I, that I had at hand, because I've been sick and I haven't had a lot of time to rummage through my work. So I decided I was gonna, just to make things easier for me, like rummage around for work that I have written about people who remind me of tropes of the holidays, like the wild and irreverent and annoying uncle trope. So in honor of that trope, I'm going to read a piece from this collection called Desperado, which was it's a sometimes project of Kendall McCook, who's a good friend here from North Texas who now lives in Oklahoma. And the piece is about that old poet, beat cowboy poet, Kel Robertson, that some of you might have known. He sauntered around different places like Fort Worth and Austin a little bit. He spent a lot of time in the Bay Area around I don't know, Rodigan and Ferlinghetti and those folks. What do they call themselves? The North Beach poets or something. Yeah, so he was affiliated with them for a minute, and he spent some time in Mexico and fancied himself to be a pretty good singer of rancheras, which he was okay when he was drunk. But at the same time, he wasn't okay when he was drunk. So the poem is pretty straightforward. No magical underpinnings here. He was like a crazy uncle in my life. You loved him and you hated him, and he bugged the crap out of you, but then you just revered his poetic prowess when he was in the right, when the sectors and chakras all lined up. He's my friend. He's my friend, that Kel Robertson, that crusty beat cowboy, a horse called Desperado, but never beat down for long. Imagine him with a shave and a hair wash, and love him about the same as you do unwashed and foul-mouthed. His voice is so soft and questioning, doubtful and allowing. I think he drinks the Meisterbrow to bring a little gruffness to his Timbre. He used to know how to
Timbra.
Timbra.
Mhm.
Okay. He drinks the Meisterbrau to bring a little gruffness to his Timbra. He managed to keep on his old cowboy uniform this beautiful summer afternoon at Evan's new high desert cottage, even as it was hot enough to go barefoot. With scruffed up toe-pinching cowboy boots, white, smudged, long-sleeved cowboy shirt with the snap buttons, and a cowboy hat, he percolated with thought. Sitting on the wooden bench next to the sack of road snacks, he waxed intellectual, speaking to me the aphorisms and comments about living the life of a liquored old poet man. He told me how much it surprised him that he had surpassed the lifespans of other old beat contemporaries, even younger ones who hadn't necessarily lived near as hard as Kell. He had fully expected to exit before the likes of Brodigan, Ginsburg, and others, but Kell carries on like he knows he's a lucky survivor. A stalwart renegade who can unload a moving truck in cowboy boots without skidding on the ramp or dropping his beer. He chuckles with a gravelly snort at the irony his life embodies. Told me that his doctor, maybe a lesbian, I think, was impressed with his physical stamina. She said that based on how he's been living his life, he should have been dead a long time ago. She must have taken a liking to him as a patient and a friend because she even took him out for a drink at a local watering hole in New Mexico. Thirsty men love the desert. A goddamn miracle of modern degeneracy is what Kell is. He chuckled, sitting and beaming at me, brighter than the August sunlight over that one. I cannot remember who said it, that clever phrase, proclaiming his longevity. Him or me, it doesn't matter. More important, he asked me, what's in that can? Pointing at what I was drinking. Kell, the lone old coot with a poet's heart and a cowboy boot scoot. I'll drink to that.
I think I remember the guy from Austin at some point.
Yeah, he was in Fort Worth. He had arrived with some other musicians. He would find followers and kind of people who want to emulate his lifestyle, just like Bukowski had Bukowskyites who wanted to, kind of summon that same kind of poetic energy, founded on a low base life of degenerate habits. And, like, oh, I could be a messed up, freaky drunk and get the girls too. Wow, teach me how to do that. Kind of thing.
I never really found that particularly laudatory.
So he had arrived here in town with these youngsters, and they were going to put on a show that evening, and we were all kind of hanging around in the house where that was daring. They had the brave, they were courageous enough to host him. And he was putting up a big fight. He did not want to take a bath. I mean, he was like the biggest baby, man in his 60s refusing to take a bath, and he just stank so much. And yeah, I just so many stories about him, but I had to kind of reconcile that with what I heard when he would be in his, on his best behavior at the mic, and that was amazing, and I'll never forget that about him. Thank you.
If you'll excuse me, I need to take a shower now.
No, sit down. This is virtual, but there's no smelling capabilities yet. We cannot.
Silly.
But you do need a shave. No, just kidding. I just noticed your mustache.
I shave twice a week, maybe.
I'm teasing. It just looked.
I've had this facial hair for like decades.
Yeah, just when you were standing, it looked much darker. Like you hit a light vacuum or something.
No, it's because my beard is white now, but it wasn't white 2 years ago. My hair didn't start turning white till my 60s, and I just turned 63 this week. So
happy
birthday.
For some weird reason, my mustache has been growing in darker though lately. In fact, you can't see it. There's a couple little patches where my hair has been coming in, like more hair is coming in places where I never had hair before, and it's black. And I'm like, what is that about?
You're morphing. to a younger whatever.
An Asian, I hope.
Well, do you have a poem since you're speaking? And forget about the shower. You're okay.
I took a shower today. um, yeah, I have something to share. So I don't really have any poems about Thanksgiving or leftovers. But I interpreted the I interpreted the, I don't like to call it a prompt, but the theme a little loosely.
Sure.
So I have this new book, Mammal, which has been out for
Cool.
I don't know, and that's I've been doing readings from it around the East Coast. That's where I was. I haven't really done any online readings up from it, really. Maybe a piece here or there. But I was thinking, but I have done about 5 or 6 readings from it, and to the point that I'm already look at all the, you know,
Yes, all the
different parts,
tabs.
and I'm all like, okay, I need a break from it. But then I realized when I was putting the book together, like about, I guess last January, or so, I suddenly redid the book. What it's poems and short things, and I took stuff out and I put stuff in, and it's much better than it used to be. But I realized that now I actually counted them 7 poems. I'm not going to read you 7 poems, but all quite short, that were taken out of the book, and they're like the leftovers from the preparation of of the meal, and so I thought maybe I would read, um I don't know, 2 or 3. They're all like a minute or less of them, but I'd like to tell this little thanks story, even though it's 2. So let me read a poem or 2. It's on a different screen, and then I'll tell a thanks story if I may. Does that sound okay?
Sounds
Where is
great.
that thing? Um, these are sort of older poems, but and I like them. They're not bad. They just got taken out of the book. They didn't fit as well. This one is probably a 10-second poem called "After the Rush." I think I wrote this when I was a bicycle messenger. It's that old. After the rush of human freedom, glittering, skittering, littering landfills, comes the release of paradigm structure, slithering, striding, slipping, abiding into the even tide. And boy, my voice is terrible tonight. I guess maybe this one is one of the oldest poems in the book. I probably wrote this when I was like 21 or something, but I still put old poems in my books along with new ones. And this is actually a sonnet that rhymes. I must, in a strange sense, geyser-like, rush for you, to you, with you, at you who spin, who in outward ecstasy ever push me. I see you in all things, feel you dim in my past, all pasts, the only real ones. As evolution spiraling, I reached your finger, a formless blast into suns. You spun my brain from gel, I leaping beached myself, a tenuous matter. I gasped, writhing. You shoved courage. I stepped, I flew. I, hairy, sensed a limb and upward grasped. I sensed new species forming in the dew. You dizzied me with knowing, feeding sound into my tongue. I say you rock as rolling skies reveal another rung. I guess that's like a sonnet to evolution.
Yeah, it felt that way. Really felt that way.
Um,
May I interject a little comic strip? Comic moment?
Yeah.
My nephew shared it with me recently. It's a whale complaining. He's been beached and there's a bunch of humans around trying to push him in. He's like, "Don't you get it? I'm trying to evolve." And they keep throwing him back in.
That's beautiful. I know the feeling.
Yes, I'm trying to evolve. Leave me alone. I don't want to shower. I'm supposed to not shower to evolve. You get it? Come on.
Yeah. So I had a lovely thank this week. I got a thank you.
From
And
tell
but
your
it
story.
actually,
Sorry.
I found it today as a message on Instagram, and it had been sent to me on like November 12th, which shows you how often I look at Instagram. But Kamala, I don't know how to say your name. Is it Kamala? Yeah. I was going to ask you this earlier because you've been teaching writing. Maybe I don't know if you're on silent.
Yeah. Okay. It's Kamala. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe you other guys have taught also. I taught writing and related subjects for about 9 years in colleges around New York. Like often first year stuff, but not always, different things. And I stopped in 2007, and to this day, like, so I got a thank you from someone who'd been a student of mine in like
Wow.
2006,
Wow.
who is now making like films. And it was a long thank you saying, you came up in a conversation with my girlfriend the other day. She asked me if any teachers had ever had a big influence on me, and it took me a minute to remember your name, but you got me started writing every day, and now I'm writing films that are getting made. And he has something in like a Latino film festival in New York and all this sort of thing. I was teaching creative writing at Rutgers, for like 2 semesters. And that sort of thing is wonderful. And it made me realize um, that maybe I should go back to teaching, because I get notes like that almost once a year. I mean, I'm going to go look and see how many I've gotten, because I have, like last year, an old student, also on Instagram, sends me something. And the year before, it's a student in New York, from Pratt, New York, that was, is in the film business also. And maybe I should get them to hire me, because I don't have any fucking work. But you know but I just wanted to share that it's sort of it isn't every year, but it's probably happened 8 or 10 times since I quit in 2007. Like every year or two, I get a note from a former student saying, thank you, you did something good for my life. And I don't know if that happens to everybody all the time, but to me it makes me feel like, you know I might be, my life might be slightly worthwhile.
Oh,
you
it
know
is. It is.
well, yeah, I'm not fishing, you know what I mean, though. It's just
Yeah.
to me that was like, it was a great week to come across that, because I was having a sullen birthday. I just turned 63, and I'm not unhappy, but I'm not happy about it either. I'm just, achy. you know? So, and my business is failing because of AI, and I'm kind of like, what should I do? And I'm like, fuck, maybe I should see if anyone will let me teach. I think I should get all the like notes on Facebook and email and Instagram together from old students, and then go look for a teaching job. you know I don't know. That's all. I wanted to tell that thank you story, because that's like, to me that was a big deal, and it may sound like a brag, but it's not. It's an observational. I'm making an observation on how sometimes our lives, we get thanked for our lives.
It's
So
never it's not a brag for me to hear that about my friends, because I want my friends to be recognized and acknowledged as I acknowledge them. And it's nice
yeah.
to know that other people are doing that for some other things you might do for them that you don't do for me. Um, yeah, and when it happens to me, I kind of blank them out, because I have a thing about kind of going into a fugue state when people compliment me.
Well, I get that too. I'm terrible on stage. If somebody asks me to walk on stage and like accept thanks, I'm I'm suddenly in another universe. I like black out until it's over. But
I'm laughing because I do that as well.
yeah, but anyway, let us all receive thanks.
Yeah.
I mean that. It's not just about giving thanks.
I
It's
think
about
that student evaluations would be a lot more meaningful if they gave them after 5 years, and based on the kind of
Hey,
thing.
I like that.
right.
And well, here in, I don't know, it's maybe been 5 years or something. I got a phone call and on my landline, which is still, my name's in the phone book or whatever. And it was from a student at Nassau Community College. You were talking about outside of New York. I taught there for a couple of years, and she had been in my creative writing class, and just, when she said who she was, I remembered. I mean, those classes back then, I didn't have as many as I have now, and it was in person. So anyway, it was really nice to chat with her. And I think we had gone to a Joy Harjo concert together, like 3 or 4 of us from that class. And so anyway, those kind of things, I know how much a boost it can be. So it's I don't know what to say about if you can find a really good place to teach, do it. It's
I don't know if I'd want. I hated the academia system, in a lot of ways, but I
it's
love
only getting
teaching.
worse a lot of places. That's
Oh, I
was
know.
the gist of my comment. But
Yeah.
I think there are still, keep your eyes and ears open, and it might be you might find something. So
Well, I've been thinking about it because I'm not joking that my business is dying, and I know how to run a business okay. It's not why it's dying, but I'm terrible at saving money. I have very little savings, like very little, like thousands, basically. And I'm 63, and right now my retirement plan is a tent. And that's the joke I've been making, but I'm like, I can't believe I thought this business would just last me because it's freelance and online. And
what do you do? What is your business?
well, I will say that ethically, I find it a little, because I don't like capitalism, but I write names for new products and businesses. I'm a namer.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
And now lots of companies are just using the chat programs to come up with names for things. And even though they're not good at it, they're free. I mean, maybe there'll be a resurgence next year when everybody tries to name something IntelliSmart at the same time, but anyway, it's not, it's kind of cool to sit at home in my pajamas, and make lists of words and make up words, but at the same time, it's not like a particularly fulfilling job. It just, it brings in the spaghetti.
That's cool.
I would think that you might be able to find some like kind of alternative teaching type gig in the Oakland area because there's a lot of progressivism in organizations there. So if I hear of anything, I'll let you know because I'm growing to meet more people from that area.
Right. I kind of know a couple of ways. It's only the last couple of days I've been thinking about maybe I should teach again. I mean, the idea of like trying to apply for something at a college or something sounds stanky to me in a way, and also like I'd have to compete. I
Oh
don't know.
yeah, there's that thing of there also being other people wanting the same thing you want at the same time. I forget about that sometimes.
Well, me too. Like that hat that you're wearing. I bet a lot of people want that hat.
They need to not put their ojo on it. Do we have another poem or
Yeah.
Kamala? You want to talk about her? Thank you for your work that you shared, Richard.
My
Kamala,
leftovers.
do you want to talk about your new book forthcoming? as per it's
Yeah.
out, but like a soft
It's out.
copy?
I mean, I have the hard copy. This is what's exciting. Whoa. Oh, you can't really.
Yeah, because you blurred your background. Somehow it blurs your front
I
ground.
don't know
Put it right
why.
in front of your
Yeah.
face.
Oh,
There.
Oh,
there
there
you
it
go.
is. There it
Yeah.
is.
Environmental Justice
Environmental
Poetic.
justice.
Put it lower.
Congratulations.
Can you? Oh,
Put it
See,
lower.
I don't know why I'm blurred. Can I turn off the blur somehow? I
yeah,
mean,
you have power over that yourself, and I
I
think
know.
that's
I just
a
can't. I
setting
don't
that
remember.
I think it's a setting that got set before you entered this space. So I don't know that you can change it once you're here.
Don't worry. We saw it.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and we could also look it up online. And
If you hold it about your chest level, we can read the top.
I just wanted to show you the painting
Mm-hmm.
is from that's weird. Okay. Is that working?
Mm-mm.
No. I don't know. I know I turned it off once before when it got on. It has never been on, and then it did it the other day, and then I think it thinks there's too much of a mess in my house. Anyway,
Do you have a JPEG of the cover?
pardon?
Do you have a JPEG of the cover?
Oh,
You could always screen share it.
yeah,
Oh,
it's
there. Thank
not
you.
very big, but it's there if you want to talk
Oh,
about
yeah, I
it.
see it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the cover is the painting for the image is from two murals, and the painting itself is by Mary Agnes Rodriguez, and one of the murals is down by Del Rio on the one on the left, and that's just part of the mural, but you know, we pulled out those two parts, and then the one on the right is the Chipko women with their arms around hugging the trees, and that one was a mural when my dad was in Odisha, which is the state we lived in when I was a child for a little while, and he was back and saw this mural and took a picture. It was in a rural indigenous area, and it's just indicative of the spread of the Chipko movement across the country. But you know, anyway, the two sort of fit together, and I wanted them both. I wanted both photos, and they said no, only one photo. So I said, okay, I'm going to do a painting instead. And so then Mary Agnes agreed to do the painting, which turned out really wonderfully. She's a local artist, has done several murals herself here, and I mean many actually, and
Quite prolific. Yeah.
she's very very accomplished. So I was really pleased, and it's been fun to sort of share the development of the book with her. But anyway, and inside the book there's a lot of discussion of well, some poetry and other work, writing and artwork and such, that's performance that is done in the interest of environmental justice. And I wrote this 20 years ago about the work that was being done in the late 20th century. But then when the opportunity came to, or the invitation to publish it, initially I had thought I still wanted to get it published. It hadn't gotten published, and I wanted to get it published as a record. But the more I worked on getting it ready for publication, I realized that I think it speaks to the 21st century and the climate justice and other struggles that we're in, just in the way that women, mostly women, it's Chicana and South Asian women that I'm looking at, or women in India, do their work. And so anyway, if I could find my glasses, I picked out a little tiny section. There's nothing about Thanksgiving dinners that I could find or that I could remember. There might be. There is a part I had told Tammy there's a discussion of her poem about falsies, which is really relevant in a way too. But and hopefully what I'm asking people to do is try and get your libraries to carry it at this point, because it should come out in paperback, but it may not be a couple years, and it's expensive. But if people can get it in their libraries, then it would be available. And yeah, that I think you can see the first page of each chapter.
What chapter do you want me to pick? I can click on a number.
Actually go up to the preface, I think, because you see more than that. Yeah, just
Publicly
okay.
available.
Yeah, because that you can actually see that. Now, if you scroll down, yeah, see that has the whole preface on that. I'm gonna read. I'm gonna read something you can't see, but the preface talks about, you know, why I did what I did, and this was something I started in graduate school. That actually when I first knew Tammy as well in Austin, and I was inspired by by some of the things I was reading, along with Poder, People Organized in Defense of the Earth and Her Resources, a group there in Austin, which is still working, has a website now. A lot of these things back then, there weren't websites like there are now. And so there's a whole lot more poetics, I guess, out there. But so it's an interdisciplinary text as well. But I thought I might read a part of a page here that's about the performances that the Chipko women do, or some of them had done, and they're just sort of outwitting the lumber guys, the mostly men that are, well, I guess it's all men that are coming to cut the forest. If you'd like to hear that. So this is way in the middle of the it's on page 250, I guess. And so there's a couple examples here of them sort of outwitting the men. Let's see. The women created a performative event that duped the forester into participating in their sardonic riddle, in which he was shown to be the foolish one. The forest official arrived to browbeat and intimidate the women and Chipko activists, but found the women holding up lighted lanterns in broad daylight. Puzzled, the forester asked them their intention. The women replied, and part of this is actually a quote, and part of it's my own writing, and part of it then I'm quoting from the women, and at least the third one you'll know. The women replied, "We have come to teach you forestry." He retorted, "You foolish women, how can you who prevents felling know the value of the forest? Do you know what the trees bear? They produce profit and resin and timber." And the women, led by Bachni Devi, who's sort of leader in this, immediately sang back in chorus. "What do the forests bear? Soil, water, and pure air. Soil, water, and pure air. Sustain the earth and all she bears." And that is actually, that story was told in Vandana Shiva's text, Staying Alive. And then in a similar strategy, they used, strategy of using objects as metaphors for teaching lessons to development schemers, hundreds of Chipko women gathered in Terry on the World Environmental Day in 1979 with empty water pots. They were protesting not only water scarcity, but the failure of water schemes and a model of science which saw metal pipes and concrete tanks as producers of water, and male engineers and technicians who fitted pipes and designed schemes as providers of that water. When, in quotes, when they were asked their grievances, they showed the district collector the empty pots and asked why, if paper plans and metal and concrete could ensure water, their pots were still empty. They explained their purpose. We have come to tell you that nature is the primary source of water, and we are the providers for our families. Unless the mountains are clothed with forests, the springs will not come alive. Unless the springs come alive, the taps will be dry. It is the live springs and not the dry taps which fill our pots. If you want to solve our water problems, please plan for water, not for pipes. One other example here, and this one, it seemed a bit like Thanksgiving party kind of thing. There was the foresters were coming, and several people in the village were upset about it, but it said the communist leaders still in town did not have the courage to act when he learned that the lumbermen were headed in for the area. Some of the male leaders, when they heard of that the government was set up, was in collusion with the company, wanted to do something. But anyway, the men basically didn't. The male activists were responding with varying degrees of panic themselves, unaware that of the village women's successful campaign against the lumber company's cutting. A young girl had detected the lumbermen in the forest and had run to Gauri Devi, same woman, the head of the women's chapter, an organization of women who helped each other through crises. The organization mobilized quickly, and 21 women and 7 girls set off to the forest area where the lumbermen were making their camp. The women issued appeals to the men that addressed these laborers from the neighboring state as brothers, but set themselves as women outside of the negotiating process for the forest rights. Bula, do not cut this forest. It provides us with cheap herbs. If the forest goes, this mountain would fall on our village. Floods would come and would be swept away. We will be ruined. Please do not cut the trees. You cook your food and eat, and then come down to the village with us. When our men folk come back, then you can settle this with them. The men disregarded the women's words. As another author puts it, seeing the women alone in the forest, their hitherto scared manhood came to the fore. Some tried to take liberties with the women. Others shouted at them for obstructing their work. One man threatened that they would be arrested, and a drunk man armed with a gun tried to frighten them. When this lumberman aimed his gun at Gauri Devi, she bared her breast to the lumberman and issued her ultimatum. Shoot, and then only you can cut the forest, which is like a mother to us. As Dopti, and then I make a reference to a story by Mahashweta Devi, as Dopti shames Sananayak by offering the sight of her bare breast to him in Mahashweta Devi's story Draupadi, so Gauri Devi shames the man who threatens her into lowering not only his gun, but also his axe. His sober companions were moved by this action and turned back also. However, the lumbermen who had been drinking wanted the women to carry them on their palinkins, to carry the logs, I think. Another group of women also used shame as a tactic when they loaded up one of the men and began to carry him. A battle of wits was going on. Several of the women carried the tools of the drunken men as they all descended from the spot where the tree felling was expected to begin. This act of belittlement later proved quite strategic. At a critical point in the road, several of the women found it feasible to disconnect the road by using the digging rods they carried to move a cement slab, which held a crucial part of the road in place. Thus, they ensured that the road was unserviceable. Nevertheless, as an added precaution, the women sat between the forest and the laborers all night. And then it adds, the next day, when the women related to what had happened, they did not tell about the gun threat or the drunken behavior because they did not want the workers to lose their jobs. They wanted all their actions and poetics to be focused on the issue at hand rather than diffused into a hatred of the other side. In this context, such a strategy of satyagraha has proved effective. Whether it is a strategy that is transferable to environmental justice struggles elsewhere is perhaps something to discuss, but it is a strategy that, because it relies on open communication, fully utilizes poetic texts and political artwork. So anyway, just thought I'd share that.
That was awesome.
And if you go online, part of the reason besides the picture here and stuff, the TIPCO is just one group that I talk about. But if you go online, we've been having this issue with the city wanting to cut a lot of the trees in Breckenridge, one of our main city park, and some old heritage trees. And so we've done protests there, and some people have been more involved than I. But one time, Greg Harmon had been there interviewing people, and I don't know how it comes up, but it's always there. Me and my dog, Bonnie Bo, were sitting there, and it was right when I was reviewing this part of the book. And so I talked about the Chipko women a little bit, and their inspiration. So if you want another background context, you can see me talking about that in this little interview online that comes up if you put in my name and environmental justice, the same as to get the book. So
Tammy, can you put that link for the book in the
Yeah.
chat?
And are you referring to the newsletter that Greg puts out? That's
Oh, do you mean the deceleration? No. There I
Deceleration.
have actually a poem about that whole process too, on deceleration. This was, I think, I'm not even sure. I mean, it may be in deceleration. I just know that I see it all the time. I don't know if I can find the link, I can put it in the chat too. But it's just a little thing. But he has done a lot on the Breckenridge Park, and a lot of that is in deceleration. And it may be in there too, but I've also seen it separately. So anyway,
I'm thinking about trees and hugging and crying over lost trees and things I've seen people do and things I've done or participated in. And it's tough. I premiered a new piece, or debuted a new work last weekend. And it's the beginning of a new project that I'm hoping to develop by next February, by this coming February. And it wants to be comprised of 100 kind of rhyming verses, like nursery rhymes. And they each will consist of about 10 lines, very short lines. And they are a way of urging sentient beings, animals more than human creatures, to hurry up and evolve so they could survive better. And it's a bit whimsical, but it's also, there's like a serious intention in it. And I'm hoping to attract 100 participants.
Oh,
Which
wow.
seems audacious, especially as I sit here sick with a red hat on. You know, can I do that by next February? But let me see if I can remember from memory, because I mean, I memorized it for last weekend, but I've been sick, so my brain's a little off. Jump, jump in the air, little fish, fly mightily in the task, a small ask to be flung so high to the sun. Bask, bask, as your upturned chin reveals a glistening grin.
Woo!
Nice.
So you're going to write 100 of those?
I'd
Or you're
like
gonna
to.
pick-
I've started the second one for a beluga whale. Yeah, and so I performed it wearing a blue dress, which had been given to me in the 90s in Austin when somebody's bridal.
Environmental justice issues.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Written about
You're talking over me.
No, I was finding that link, only I didn't know that it was gonna.
Oh, I'm teasing.
Go ahead.
I mean, it don't bother me to be talked over at all. So let's see. What was I saying? Yeah, I was wearing a blue dress and I had a plexiglass box about 3 feet long and this deep with water in it. So I was carrying that in. I was like carrying a river of water in a plexiglass box, very gingerly and carefully in my floor length gown. And then I also asked how the river was doing. How are you, river? How are you doing today? How are you, river? How do you feel today? How do you feel? How do you feel, river? How do you feel, river? How do you feel today? How do you feel, river? How do you feel today? So I'm sliding into a mode of developing that work, and so I just needed to mention it because I'll be mentioning it a lot here in the coming weeks, especially to others around me here in Fort Worth as I try to recruit participants. And the other thing
Wait,
I'll
what
say
what
about
do the participants do?
they each read one of the 100 verses
Oh, okay.
100 times, which I timed it. You could do it in 16 minutes.
100.
Yeah, it's it's like doing Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers 100 times, but
easier.
refresh, updated nursery rhymes for the hopefully not too disillusioned climate crisis survivalists among us. And our feathered, beaked, clawed, and furry
Scaled
friends.
and scaled.
Scaled, yes. And prickly and thorny and stinky and snouty and curmudgeonly and short and tall.
Mhm.
So since I'm thinking about rivers and mammals, there's a rare species called a bongo, kind of a cousin to the antelope, that got out of its pen by accident here at the Fort Worth Zoo nearby, closer to where Jeffrey lives than where I live. And it was free. It was it experienced liberty for about 30 minutes, but it didn't quite make it to the river. And that really, really depresses me that it didn't make it to the river.
What happened?
They caught it. They,
They
people
caught it.
did, oh my God, get back here. You know, I think that's what they did. I did a little impersonation of them.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. I'm mad.
Sorry, Kamala. I was taking your question seriously, but that's how I answered. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, he was caught. It was caught and returned to the zoo.
There's a terribly sad story that I've heard several times on NPR, and I don't remember the program, but of these um apes of some kind, and I'm not sure which, that get loose, and some of them get killed. So I had to make sure that it wasn't killed.
Yeah, it wasn't. Do you remember or take notes about stories that really move you, shockingly move you, and you maybe bookmark those for?
Yeah, I bookmarked them. I don't know that I can pull it out right now, but I can send it to you later if you want.
Well, yeah, there's one that I bookmarked in my
Or
mind.
maybe you know it. You might have heard it, because I know it was 2 or 3 times I was driving somewhere and I came on at the same time.
I don't remember hearing that particular story, but around the time that the Bongo sought liberation, there were some mysterious disappearances of animals from the Dallas Zoo, just up the road
Hmm.
from us. They found all the missing animals in a closet in an abandoned house. Somebody was heisting
Oh
them.
my! In a closet?
Yeah.
Were they okay?
I need to get some water.
Mm-hmm.
They're
You
all
need to
they're all
visit
okay. They did not die. They've been remedied. Excuse me.
Go get some river. I like water too. Oh, here's some.
Oops.
I literally can't be ever without water at within arm's reach. I carry like a big heavy bag around with me all the time, and the thing I use the most in it is the water bottle.
Huh.
Mhm.
And it doesn't leak. That's what happens to me when I try to carry water.
You have to put it in something. I'm joking.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I just have old, water bottles, just from the store, like
Uh-huh.
Fiji bottles or
Okay.
whatever I happen to have.
Yeah, they keep. I try not to get the. Well, I do sometimes, but I try to get ones that are refillable, but then sometimes they leak, or I don't know.
Yeah, these
And
seem to last for quite a while. I mean, I don't know how good the plastic is for me, but at this point, hey, if I'm not like 3/4 microplastics
yeah,
already,
we already are. That's true.
Yeah, sadly. They're finding it in babies' bloodstream and stuff. Ugh.
Mhm.
Yeah, I sat in on a webinar on those forever plastics. What was it called?
Oh yeah, those horrible ones. The
Yeah.
cats or something. Is that
Yeah.
what you're thinking?
And
Or the
oh my gosh, it was so disheartening. And one of the ways you can cut down on its prevalence in your life is to, and this is so hard, is to dust your home,
oh
Oh
because
my
a
uh-huh.
lot
God.
of it they're finding this what are they called again, these microplastics that you said the term, Kamala?
Cats, I think, or I don't know if
Yes.
I have
PFAS, PFAS,
PFAS. Yeah.
PFAS, yeah. And I forget what that stands for, but that's the acronym. Yeah, that they've done some scientific studies and found that a lot of the dust in households is comprised of microplastics or
It
PFAS.
used to be just our skin cells. But that's scary because I have approximately 40 pounds of dust scattered around my apartment. And I think if I were to gather it all up, it would weigh at least 40 pounds.
Well,
Mhm.
don't put it on a coffee table and snort it through a rolled up piece of paper, because that's
I'll try not to. I get these urges.
we're
Jeffrey, do you have
we're
something
so
for us?
ironic and sarcastic and all. Sorry, it's just
I'm so mean. Yeah.
if we don't get each other by now, then we'll never get each other. But yeah, that was, I'm like, I hate dusting. Like, can somebody invent something that's like this anti-gravity
It's endless.
dusting
That's the
where it
thing. If I
levitates?
start dusting one room, if a
Mhm.
week later I'll be done with that room, and then I'll look in the other room. It's just
It's like
I think
reading James Joyce, Finnegan's Wake. Did you hear that story on NPR? Of the people who
About the-
finished reading it and started reading it.
Like it took years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the people who paint the and this I heard is also factual. The people who paint, the team that paints the Bay Bridge, the San Francisco Bay Bridge, bright orange red, like
That's
this
the Golden Gate. The
Golden Gate.
Golden
Thank
Gate.
you. Yeah, the Golden Gate. Yeah, as soon as they finish painting it, they start over
start.
again because it takes about 10 years to do.
Yeah,
Ah,
that's like the
so
BQE in Brooklyn. It's like
it's the modern day myth
it
of
is always,
Sisyphus. It's
always under reconstruction. In fact, all
so
of New York City.
dust is like that. Dust in our lives,
Mhm.
ubiquitous as it is, as hated as it is never gonna go away because we hate it.
Yeah,
It's just gonna be.
yeah. I should write a horror story about it. I think I will.
I'd like for somebody to invent something, some anti-gravity thing that can make it like at least levitate. If we can get it to levitate off the surfaces, then
And it's in the air.
well then we use fans that dedicated to
I'd
flushing
be
it out.
breathing it. I'd just be standing in the room breathing it, and then I would evolve, and I would be accidentally become immortal, and that would be awful. I
Na na
mean,
na na na
if
na na dust man.
yeah, awful. I mean, I'm worried enough right now, keep thinking I'm having a midlife crisis. But if that's really true, then I'm going to live to be 126, and that just doesn't sound great to me.
Okay, we have
I
me-
want to hear a poem from Jeffrey or where.
yeah,
For
let's
Jeffrey.
from me,
Yeah,
I was just gonna say that for millions of years, people lived with dirt floors. You know, they didn't have a dust problem.
yeah.
And they didn't have a PFAT problem for sure.
yeah. They had no plastics around to speak of, so
Well, I don't have a. I've got one short poem that, since this was a leftovers, this is a poem Tammy's heard, but I'm going to read it anyway.
reheat it and serve it up.
It's a short one. It's called River Reverie. Walking along the river, I paused and watched a snow white egret gliding low across the water, then hovering for a moment before lightly alighting on an invisible perch beneath the water. I turned my eyes away to the tree behind me on the bank of the river, drawn by some invisible power, to see a brilliant mountain bluebird watching me, watching the egret. They stayed, watching me, watching them, almost close enough to reach out and touch. But I had no need to reach out to touch. And I knew it was the bluebird of happiness.
That's cool. Is that off of an experience
Yes, that
in where?
on the Trinity, walking along the Trinity River.
Uh-huh.
I love walking along and watching all the birds, the river birds, the river turtles. There's some trees, and I may have recounted this to some of you, that I got one of those apps on my phone where you identify, plants, and I went through a period where I was carrying it around and I was identifying everything on my walks, everything that I passed. I wanted to know what everything was. And then one night while I was doing that, during the period I was doing that, this huge old live oak tree appeared in my dream and said, "How come you haven't come and visited me like you're visiting all these other plants?" And so I went and visited the live oak. Took a whole bunch of pictures of it and posted it on Facebook and everywhere. And I'm becoming more and more an animist. You know, I'm just experiencing over and over that everything's alive and everything speaks to us. And in another dream, it came to me that all these trees that I needed to go and actually introduce myself. And so I went and I actually went up to the tree and said, "Excuse me, my name's Jeffrey Pulis. I've been coming by here for a lot of time, and I really appreciate you providing me shade on my walks." And I went and put my hand on it and did the metta prayer for it, saying, "May you stay safe. May you stay healthy. May you stay happy. May you have peace of mind. Thank you." And then continued on my walk. And I've been doing that every day since. And now some of the squirrels that live in that area, when I was doing the metta prayer, the little squirrel came around and just was right there staring at me while I was talking. And so I introduced myself to the squirrel also. So yeah. I'm getting to know all of them now.
And you're not getting in very many steps because you're stopping.
Doesn't take that long. Doesn't take that long.
Oh, I'm playing with you. Oh, that's so beautiful. Maybe one day I'll be biking past and I'll see you doing that. I'm like, say hi to me, Jeffrey. For God's sake. I'm alive.
You need a metta prayer.
Yes. I've actually done metta prayers for you, Tammy. So
I feel them. Thank you. Oh, I love the stories that are coming out here in this hour of being together. Does anyone have anything else before we close? I'm gonna turn off the recording soon, unless you want to squeeze in one more verse or poem. You have something, Kamala?
No, I was just I thought my candle was still going, and I was it's
oh, it's beautiful
glass from West Bank, and I ordered a couple of its gifts now, but I ordered one of these, and it's made out of recycled, like this stuff is recycled glass. It's a special thing that they do. And I figured, I like lights this time of year. We all do, right? To bring back the light. And this was a way to also sort of make a connection and contribute something to their economy. I mean, just that much, but it felt like something. So, and I light it. And now I've ordered little solar lights so that I don't have to burn a bunch of candles. But anyway, I was just going to share that. It's Thank off, you. But it's really beautiful. Oh, I put a picture of it in it was on one of my stories, I think, in Facebook. I have to repost it.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see that, and I'd love to know where you ordered that. Is it a candle or is it just a candle holder that you ordered?
It's a candle holder. It comes with a little candle and some sand from the West Bank. And it's the Hebron, I think it is, glass. They have some of that stuff at the Palestine Online, but this one I actually got through the 10,000 Villages. They have, where they work with different artisans around the world, and it's a fair trade kind of thing. And they've had long time relationship with his family that does the glass blowing there in the West Bank.
Thank you for sharing about that. There's a project that I wish I felt well enough to be really promoting, and I don't know if I have time to maybe instigate something, but there's a script circulating, and it's titled The Gaza Monologues, and it's written in the structure, has the same structure as the Vagina Monologues. And so I read about this through a theater Facebook group that I'm a part of, a member of, and they're asking for people to do a reading. This is like it's royalty free. You'd have royalty free access to the script for a reading on a day that's coming up in the next 4 days. It's very soon, and they're trying to get people all over the world to do a reading on the same day, however you do it, in person, virtually, in your home with family members. But there's a website one can go to access and download the script, which was written in 2014 or so, during the last, I don't know how this is measured, like the last war in Gaza. So it was written by youth. I'm sorry.
I said siege of Gaza.
Yeah, the last when did it stop? I mean, it's interminable, right? So the script wasn't written recently, in the last month or so. It was written from the prior upswell in violence and terror in Gaza, by young people. Did I say that? By young people. So you may hear from me about this at the very last minute, and it'll be virtual, and I'm not going to make any promises because I'm still sick, but I want to do it. I just feel that now I know about it, I have to do something. I want to do something.
I'm going to look up the website though and share it. Maybe that other people will be.
Yeah, I'm happy to share it with you after we get off here. I'll go look,
that's cool.
because I don't remember any details right off the top of my head.
It's okay if I don't.
Because the top of my head's filled with mucus, I think.
Yeah.
I want you to get some echinacea and some chamomile tea in one pot, and enjoy that. And be sure to breathe it while it's steaming.
I have echinacea tincture. I don't have the tea. I have chamomile tea. I have fresh ginger. I have lots of things right now.
Make yourself a ginger chamomile then, yeah.
Thank you.
And be sure to breathe it. I could share one other leftover if that's okay. And I have one, one is angry and it's about war, but I think I'll do this. I'd rather end on a reflective note, if that's okay. This doesn't have any title. Didn't make it into my book. I look around my room and identify dozens, hundreds of objects that I've accumulated here, like an ant dragging crumbs. You were kind of talking about this earlier, Tammy. Like a stray force of nature. Books of all sorts, various instruments, all kinds of music and media, magazines, movies, video games, art, my beloved plants, piles of notebooks, a few pieces of cheap electronics, a scattering of decrepit furniture and shelves, old clothing strewn about, trinkets and keepsakes and oddities. And I wonder how to read them, how to read all of this. After all these years, do they tell a story, or are they just a jumble? It's no different than asking whether light is a wave or a particle. The answer is yes. And if that's the case, what kind of story is it, and what kind of jumble? It's the jumble of a middle-aged man who occasionally parts with things, but not often. And it's the story of a middle-aged man asking himself what kind of story his life is. which is a tautology at best, a breathing, eating, thinking Mobius strip. But it's also the breeze coming through that window and the scent of rain it carries, a pebble crumbling in the hills, geese taking flight, an ant digging out a home.
Thank you.
Just belongs in a different book, I guess.
It belongs in its own book with lots of hand-drawn illustrations. I love it.
Okay.
Broadside.
I love it.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Makes
Thank
me feel
you.
better about my own house too.
yeah. Well, we live and live. What the heck?
Yeah.
I thought, that pebble crumbling in the distance outside.
In the
What if
hills,
our
yeah.
belongings started doing that? They just started like deteriorating. It would be so
Tammy,
funny.
Mine do.
they already are.
Yeah, they are.
We are. I mean, it's just
But
how it
not fast
works.
enough.
I don't know.
Like I have a gift bag. Like I have I don't have room for all this stuff. Like stop giving me stuff, people. No, I enjoy everything, all the blessings. It's just I'm overwhelmed lately.
Then you do need a thanks-taking party.
Yeah, a taking, yeah, take away from me party. Take it away. Well, appreciate your time here, and I made it through with my little crummy voice. Thank you for your patience with that and my coughing. And I loved all the stories. I mean, I love the warm up. Did you know that we had like a 30-minute warm up before we started reading poetry? That's an important facet. Maybe it's an annoying or irritating facet sometimes to people who are like just want to get to the poetry, but I think we're getting to other things as well that are very hard to pinpoint and access in life out there sometimes, so we can find it here among
I
each
come
other
here for the everything.
all at once.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now I'm finally gonna really actually turn off the recording because I got all this juicy stuff on tape.